I'm Eyeball John, and welcome back to another video on how to restore your classic Corvette. I've been getting a lot of questions lately about restoring the cars and proper procedures, and a lot of the questions have been about seams on a Corvette, where they bond together, how to keep them from shrinking.
It shrinks?
And yes, they do shrink. When you're doing a high dollar restoration, the last thing you want to see is a seam shrinking back. A lot of people fill them with different things. Bondo doesn't work. These kitty hair or cat hair, any kind of these polyester, it's Bondo with fiberglass mixed in. Doesn't work. Okay, the only way you're going to get rid of it is if you grind the seam down and fill it in with fiberglass and resin. And that's the only way it's not going to shrink back. So let's follow along. I'm going to, I got a mid-60s Corvette here, and I'm going to grind down the seam and show you the procedure on how to keep it from shrinking back. Also, a lot of times when you're going to purchase an old Corvette, you want to see the bonding seam shrunken in. If the car is being advertised or sold as an original car, you want to see that with original paint, because that means usually that the panels were never changed on the car, because you could see the factory glue sink in, which is common. It's normal for that to happen. All 63 to 67 Corvettes have the same seams, so it's pretty much a big model. So if you ever built models as a kid, you know everything gets glued together. Everything gets glued together on a Corvette. You have two panels joined together by a bonding strip that's in back, and it's glued together. Also, when you're filling the seam, I've seen people use different things. Bondo doesn't work, okay? It'll shrink up just as fast or faster than the factory glue. These polyester fillers, kitty hair, gorilla hair, whatever kind of hair you're talking about, it's a Bondo mixed with fiberglass strands, okay? It doesn't work. The only thing that's going to work, like I said, is grinding it and filling it with fiberglass mat and resin, and then sanding it down smooth, and it won't shrink back. Okay, here you can see the factory seam. You got the top surround, and you have the lower quarter, and this is the glue line. They run anywhere between 1/8 to 1/2 inch, I've seen, depending on who's building them that day at the factory. Let me spray a little wax and grease remover on it. It'll come up a lot better. So there you can see. And you can also see that somebody took a grinder and went down the sides and tried to fill it with Bondo, which again is not going to work. So I'm going to start grinding and show you the procedure on how I fix them. This is another mid-year Corvette that I removed the quarter panel from, just in case you've never seen a bonding strip. This is what it looks like. You can clearly see it here. The top surround is glued to the bonding strip, and then the lower quarter will also glue onto the bonding strip. Then you have the front supports that it gets glued on, and the rear splash shield that gets glued on there. And then everything gets glassed over. Now, this method that I'm showing you in this video can be used on any seam on any year Corvette. Okay, I'm about ready to grind. Got my angle grinder with a 3-inch pad, 24 grit, and what I'm going to do is grind along the seam, usually about a 2-inch, about wide, 2-inch wide, so top and bottom. What you want to do is grind 2-inch gully indent in here, in this area. Dig it out with the grinder. Not too deep, just enough for maybe 2-3 layers of glass. And then I always build it up a little higher that's needed, then this way when you sand it down, it's level and you don't need any plastic filler, any Bondo. So let's follow along. Okay, the area has been ground down. I don't know if you could tell or not. Right from here to here. Okay, so basically, yeah, just drew it out. What you're doing is, it's a little exaggerated, but this is the seam. This is the lower core of the panel, top surround. And what you're doing is just grinding in a gully in here in which to fill the fiberglass. And then I'll usually maybe start with maybe a 3/4 inch piece, and then an inch into 2 inches. This way you just build it up gradually, and you build it up a little higher than you need. This way when you sand it, it'll be nice and smooth and no filler is needed. Okay, so let me cut some glass and start glassing. All right, so here you can see I cut my fiberglass mat into strips. I usually like to have everything cut and ready before I begin. So I got like about 3/4 inch pieces, maybe 1.5 inches, and 2 inches. Start with the smallest to the biggest and build up the area. The area is already cleaned. Put some paper to keep it clean, keep the mess down of the resin. Piece on the floor just in case anything drips. And let's get started mixing up some resin. All right, let's mix up some resin. Got the cup, 2-inch brush, polyester resin, I'm not going to need to tint this because it's getting primed and painted over, so you're not going to see it. There's the hardener. Stir it. And what you're going to see is that it's going to, you can see it, it's going to start to change colors. It'll go from the pink, which is how it starts off, and it'll turn into like a green. All right, let's get started. All right, so basically, taking the resin, just painting it on. Just get like a thin layer on there as a tack coat. Start laying the strips in. Starting off with my smaller strip. Just laying it on there. And just dab it on the resin. Again, I like to use 3/4 inch, 3/4 ounce mat. It's nice and thin and workable, and the resin soaks in nice and fast. Okay, let me show you again. Just go down. Again, let me show you how fast. Just dab it on the resin. Soaks right in. And you can see the glare, but once they're the matte, which is white, turns the color of the resin, it's soaked. The resin is soaked in, so you know that the resin has penetrated the glass and the repair. And you don't have to worry about any kind of bubbles, which you would see. Okay. put the next piece underneath. Here's the next larger piece. You can see all I'm doing is just dabbing it. Hopefully you can see how this is coming out. Laying down nice. Resin is soaked in. Okay. Let me show you the final piece. I got my 2-inch piece on now. This is the third and final piece I'll be needing. All right. Just soaking it up with the resin. And like I said, I'm just dabbing it. Some people like to roll, take a fiberglass roller and roll it, but you know what? It comes out flat enough and there's no bubbles. Doing it just with the brush, taking your time. Hard to do this, I'm trying to get close up, doing it in one hand, holding the other hand, holding the camera with the other hand, but so that you can get the idea. Okay, and just go back and forth, take the brush, there you go, just dabbing, that's all you have to do. You don't want to start dragging it, you don't want to start pulling the mat. And if you see that you need a 4th piece, by all means, put it on. Okay, so there you have it. The seam glassed in. Once it's cured and sanded, it will never shrink back on you. Okay, let me finish up, and then next step is to sand it and show you the final product after what it looks like. Okay, so back again. The resin has cured nice and hard now, and I'm going to knock it down with the 8-inch Bondo eater, as I call it. I'm going to take a quick cut, knock it down, and then finish it off with the 6-inch DA, and then I'll block it out. And you'll see it'll be nice and level, and there won't be any need for any kind of filler Bondo. So let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, I took it down with the 8-inch Bondo eater, and nice and smooth. Now what I'm going to do is just finish it up with the longboard with a piece of 40 on it. I usually, on the Bondo eater, I usually use a piece of 36. Take it down faster. If you don't have 36, 40 works just fine. So, just sanding back and forth. And of course that pattern block sanding, always block in a cross hatch pattern, which is one way, and your grind marks are going on an angle, then go the other way. And what will happen is you'll pick up any low spots. Anything low will be a darker area. It's the easiest way to do it. Okay, so there you have it. The seam is filled in. There's a few little low spots, some air bubbles that could be easily filled in with another coat of just resin. You could put a thin layer of Bondo if you want, but I usually don't do that. Actually, we polyester primer the whole car, so that polyester will probably be enough to, spray on polyester will be enough to fill in any little bubble air pocket. Let me give you a closer look. Okay, so here's the seam. You can see this area right here is filled in nicely. Dark spots would be the low areas. I could put another little piece of glass in there with some resin, but for the most part, the seam is filled in. Spray some wax and grease remover, and there you can see it. The seam will come up with the wax and grease remover sprayed on it. But it's filled in with fiberglass and resin, and that area will never shrink back again. And that's pretty much it. If you want to get rid of shrinking seams, then this is the way to go. Okay, so there you have it. The quarter panel is finished. The seam is filled in. It's glassed, and it won't shrink back. So that's pretty much the end of this video. And like always, please like, subscribe, and comment. Until next time, this is Eyeball John signing off.